Dear friends, you are listening to Buddha's Healing, a gentle space where we reflect upon the Buddha's wisdom and learn how to live peacefully amidst the many changes of life. Have you ever quietly asked yourself, why is it that some people are very careful about what they eat, take all kinds of supplements, and regularly visit doctors yet still feel exhausted, restless, unable to sleep deeply, and burdened by one illness after another? Why do some people seem worn out before their time, even though they are only in their 50s? And yet, there are others whose hair has almost completely turned gray, whose years are many but whose faces still appear soft and peaceful, whose eyes remain bright and whose presence still feels calm and steady. What creates such a difference? Is it wealth, better medicine, or simply good fortune? If we look deeply and mindfully, we may begin to see something profound. Some illnesses do not begin in the body. They begin in the mind. Some pain does not come from old age. It comes from the burdens we continue carrying deep within our hearts. Some exhaustion is not caused by working too hard. It comes from a soul that has never truly rested. Many people spend their entire lives trying to heal the body, yet forget to care for the heart and mind. When the head aches, they take medicine. When sleep disappears, they search for remedies. When exhaustion comes, they nourish the body. When blood pressure rises, they avoid certain foods. None of this is wrong. The body deserves care. Health is precious. But if we only treat the branches and never look at the roots, one suffering may quiet down, only for another to quietly arise. Because there are things that silently wear away our health every single day, things we often cannot see. They make no sound, they give no warning, they do not knock us down all at once. Instead, they quietly take away our life energy. Little by little, like a small stream of water slowly flowing against stone. At first, no one notices. But after many years, even solid rock begins to wear away. The human mind is much the same, and so is the human body. The Buddha once taught us that every form of suffering has a cause. Nothing arises without conditions. A tree does not wither because it lacked water for only one day, and a weakened body rarely collapses because of a single illness. More often, it begins with very small habits, quiet habits, familiar habits repeated day after day. And perhaps the saddest part is this. Most of us believe those habits are normal. We think everyone lives this way. So we never notice the danger. For example, holding on to resentment for too long, repeating old stories in the mind again and again, clinging to emotional wounds, constantly comparing ourselves with others, worrying endlessly about things that have not even happened, eating without peace, sleeping without rest, living while the mind never truly pauses. Dear friends, did you know that a person who holds anger for many years slowly changes? The face begins to change. A person who lives in constant anxiety slowly exhausts the body from within. A person who clings too tightly, unable to let go, will eventually feel heaviness not only in the heart, but also in the body. These words are not meant to frighten you. They are simply truths of life, gentle truths but very real ones. Sometimes people ask, I haven't done anything wrong, so why does illness keep coming? But sometimes, what exhausts us most is not some great wrongdoing. It is the small things repeated every day. A little frustration each day, a little anger each day, a little disappointment each day, a little sadness left unspoken each day. Little by little, they accumulate. Until one day, the body can no longer carry the weight, and illness quietly appears. Many people believe health only comes from food and medicine, but in truth, the way we think is also feeding the body. The way we view life is shaping our health. When the mind is peaceful, energy flows gently, and when energy flows gently, the body finds ease. But when the mind is troubled, breathing becomes heavy. When the heart is unsettled, the body struggles to rest. There is an old saying, the mind shapes the face, but perhaps something deeper is also true. The mind shapes suffering, and sometimes, the mind shapes illness. If you have ever spent an entire night awake because of sorrow, then you already understand. Just one worry can completely drain a person. Just one painful argument can leave the heart unbearably heavy. Just one thing we cannot let go of can steal away an entire night of sleep. The body is deeply honest. Whatever the heart carries, the body quietly reveals. Some people smile often, yet feel completely exhausted inside. Some say, I am fine, but deep down they are very tired. Some try to appear strong, though their hearts have long been breaking. The Buddha never taught us to run away from sickness, nor did he ever say that those who practice the Dharma would never become ill, because this body is impermanent. Where there is birth, there will also be aging. Where there is health, there will eventually be weakness. Where there is meeting, there will one day be parting. But what the Buddha gently reminds us is this: if we learn to care for the mind, much suffering becomes lighter, and even illness may lose some of its burden. Because when the mind becomes peaceful, we begin to care for ourselves with compassion. We slow down. We eat with awareness. We rest. We forgive. And little by little, we finally begin to let go of what should have been released long ago. Many people wait until illness becomes serious before they begin to care about their health. They wait until the doctor gives a warning before finally going to bed earlier. They wait until the heart begins to ache before learning to let go of anger. They wait until sleepless nights become unbearable before trying to quiet the mind. They wait until the body cries out for help before finally stopping. But dear friends, there are things in life that, if understood just a little earlier, could make the journey so much lighter. The body would suffer less, and the heart would carry less pain. In today's reflection, we will gently look together at 6 quiet habits that slowly wear away our health. Not to blame ourselves, not to frighten ourselves, but to awaken, to understand that true healing often begins within, because if we wish to be healthy, we must first care for the mind. If we wish to feel peace, we must slowly learn the art of letting go. For when the heart feels lighter, the body also begins to soften. Many of the burdens we carry in this life do not begin with the body, they begin quietly within the heart, and sometimes the thing that hurts us most is the very thing we refuse to release. Dear friends, take a quiet moment and ask yourself, when was the last time you truly rested inwardly? Not resting from work, not going on vacation, not simply sleeping, but truly resting inside. A day without blame, a day without endless thoughts, a day without reopening old wounds and hurting yourself all over again. Have you had such a day? Or has your mind gone far too long without rest? If a room remains closed for too many days, the air becomes heavy. If a pond no longer flows, the water grows cloudy. And when the heart becomes filled with endless worries and sorrows, the body too slowly becomes burdened. This is why health is not only about the body, health is also about the condition of the soul. A person sleeps deeply because the heart feels light. A person enjoys food because the mind feels peaceful. A person lives with vitality because they know what is enough. And often, those who carry less resentment suffer less deeply. It sounds simple, yet living this truth is not always easy. because human beings are often more familiar with holding on than letting go. We hold on to pain, we hold on to memories, we hold on to competition, we cling to being right, we carry hurtful words in our hearts. We even hold on to things that ended long ago, and little by little, we become the very reason for our own exhaustion. We become the reason peace feels so far away, and that inner unrest quietly begins affecting the body day after day. So today, if you feel tired, if sleep has become difficult, if you find yourself becoming easily irritated, if joy no longer visits your heart the way it once did, please do not rush to blame the body. Perhaps it is the mind that needs healing first. Perhaps what you truly need is not only medicine, but silence, stillness, a moment to pause, and the courage to gently look inward. Because when the mind slowly begins to heal, the body often follows in ways that feel almost miraculous. And perhaps that is why we are gathered here together today. To quietly reflect on those small habits, the ones that seem harmless, yet silently take away our health each day. So that after this time together, you may slow down a little, be kinder to yourself a little more, release a little more, and perhaps find a little more peace in this fast-moving life, dear friends. There is something very strange about human life that many of us rarely stop to truly notice. We are deeply afraid of illness. We fear high blood pressure, we fear diabetes, we fear sleepless nights, we fear heart disease. We fear the day our bodies no longer have the strength to walk, to work, or to care for the people we love. And yet, strangely, we rarely look deeply into the causes quietly creating suffering each day. It is like seeing water leaking through the ceiling and spending all day wiping the floor, without ever climbing up to see where the hole truly is. Human life can be very much the same. Many people spend their lives treating only the surface, but the root remains untouched. When the head aches, they take medicine. When exhaustion appears, they take vitamins. When sleep disappears, they search for ways to fall asleep. But very few quietly ask themselves, what is disturbing my heart so deeply? What is causing my body to remain tense day after day? What burden inside me has still not been released? If you look carefully, those who carry too much suffering in the heart often struggle to feel truly healthy. Perhaps today they seem fine. Tomorrow they feel drained again. Medical tests may show nothing serious, and yet something still feels heavy. Energy feels low. The spirit feels tired. Why is this? Because the body does not live by food and water alone. The body also lives through the energy of the mind. A mind constantly filled with worry makes the breath shorter. A heart filled with resentment gradually changes the face. A person unable to let go of the past often finds sleep becoming lighter and more restless. People often think illness comes only from food. But dear friends, there are things far more poisonous than food: long-held anger, endless negative thinking, grief buried for too long, unhealed pressure, pain that never found words. There are people who spend decades appearing perfectly fine on the outside, yet inside, they are stretched tight like a string ready to break, always afraid of losing, always afraid of failure, always worried about what others think, always trying to stay strong, always forcing themselves to endure. Until one day, the body finally begins to speak, and only then do they stop and truly listen. Some people say, I don't even work that hard, so why am I always sick? But dear friends, exhaustion does not only come from working too much. Some people become exhausted because they think too much. Some grow tired from carrying too many responsibilities. Some suffer because they never learn to forgive. and some become unwell because they are constantly competing, comparing and holding onto resentment. When the mind never truly rests, the body finds it very difficult to heal. There is a quiet paradox in modern life. The more advanced life becomes, the harder peace seems to find us. Homes are more comfortable, medicine is more available, living conditions are better than ever before. And yet, why are more people unable to sleep? Why is anxiety becoming so common? Why do so many people seem to have everything, yet still feel heavy inside? Perhaps it is because we have learned how to care for the body, but forgotten how to care for the heart. We know how to care for our skin, we know how to exercise, we know how to eat healthy food. But many of us have forgotten how to rest inwardly, forgotten how to release thoughts, forgotten how to forgive, forgotten how to stop reopening old wounds. Sometimes, you may have already forgiven others, but perhaps you have never truly forgiven yourself. Sometimes 10 years have already passed. Yet one painful memory still hurts as though it happened yesterday. Sometimes only a single sentence spoken carelessly becomes something we carry for a lifetime, and slowly, that burden begins weighing not only on the heart, but on the body as well. If you have ever lost sleep over something small, then you already understand the power of the mind. Just one thought repeated over and over can tire the heart, can burden the mind, can leave the body exhausted. That is why people often say, many illnesses begin in the mind. Not every illness comes from the mind, but much suffering of the body grows deeper when the mind is not at peace. The Buddha once taught something profoundly important. When unwholesome states of mind arise, suffering quietly begins to grow. It is like planting a bitter seed and hoping for sweet fruit. Such a thing is difficult. If the heart is filled with anger, the body rarely feels light. If the mind is full of comparison and competition, peace becomes difficult. If we continue living inside regret, joy struggles to return. So today, before speaking about health, let us first speak about the heart. Because true healing begins from within. If you wish to sleep peacefully, the mind must first grow lighter. If you wish for the body to rest, the heart must first become calm. If you wish to live long, do not allow suffering to live too long inside you. Many people think that letting go means weakness. But dear friends, that is not true. Sometimes letting go is wisdom. It is understanding what deserves to stay and what gently needs to be released. Not everyone who hurts us deserves space in our hearts forever. Not every disagreement needs a winner. Not every sorrow deserves a permanent home within us. Some things can only heal us when we finally put them down. Because, dear friends, the one who suffers most is often not the person who was hurt by others, but the person who continues reliving that hurt again and again. And often, the most exhausted person is not the one who works the hardest, but the one who thinks the most. So if lately you have felt weaker, please do not only look at age, look deeply into the heart. What burden are you still carrying? What are you still holding on to? Is there resentment still living inside? Is there sadness waiting to be held gently and healed? Because many illnesses of life do not arrive in a single day. They are often the result of years of inner unrest. And perhaps now is a beautiful moment for us to gently look again at those small habits, the quiet ones, that slowly take away our health day after day, not with blame, not with fear, but with honesty, so we may understand ourselves more deeply and care for ourselves more gently. The Buddha gently reminded us, as long as greed, anger, and ignorance remain in the heart, suffering will continue, not because someone is punishing us, not because fate is unfair, but because an unsettled heart creates storms within. A person who carries resentment for too long is like someone holding burning charcoal, hoping to throw it at another before anyone else is harmed. Their own hand is already burned. A person living in constant anxiety is like someone carrying a heavy sack of stones on their shoulders. Walking day after day, how could they not grow tired? And those who cling too tightly, trying to control everything according to their wishes, often suffer the most, because life itself is impermanent. Nothing remains forever. No one stays beside us forever. No feeling lasts forever. And so, learning to let go at the right moment becomes a profound form of healing. Not giving up, not becoming cold-hearted, but learning how to soften, so the heart finally has room to rest, and the body finally has space to heal. If you observe carefully, you may notice that many people are not tired because of age, but because they have lived too long in tension. Some people wake up already worried about money, worried about children, worried about what others think, worried about a future that has not even arrived, worried about things that may never happen at all. Living this way every day, how could the body not become exhausted? How could the mind not slowly lose its strength? Perhaps the saddest part is this: many people do not even realize they are slowly hurting themselves. They believe it is responsibility. They believe it is kindness. They believe they are simply trying to care for everyone. But in truth, they are quietly exhausting themselves, quietly imprisoning themselves inside invisible pressure. Imagine holding a glass of water for a few minutes. It feels light, but hold it for an entire day. And eventually the arm begins to ache. The human heart is very much the same. A small sadness is not dangerous. But if held for too long, it slowly becomes heaviness. A painful moment eventually passes, but if we continue replaying it in the mind, it continues hurting us long after it is gone. This is why healing does not mean forgetting everything. Healing means learning to remember, without continuing to suffer. Letting go does not mean losing something. Sometimes, it simply means giving peace back to yourself. There are people who become ill because they cannot let go. Some suffer because they cling too tightly. Some grow exhausted because they expect perfection from themselves. And if this sounds familiar to you, please do not blame yourself. Just begin gently, slowly, lightly. Breathe a little deeper, forgive a little more, think a little less, and little by little, you may begin to notice something beautiful. The mind softens, sleep grows deeper, the body begins to feel lighter, and health quietly starts returning in the most natural way. Let me share with you a story. There was once a woman named Mrs. Abigail. At that time, she had just turned 58 years old. From the outside, many people believed she had a comfortable life. Her home was stable. Her children had grown up. Life no longer seemed as financially difficult as it had been in her younger years, but only she truly understood how exhausted she had become inside. Every morning when she woke up, her body felt heavy, a dull headache lingered. Her shoulders remained tense. Her chest always felt slightly tight, as though something invisible was quietly pressing against her heart. At night, sleep became difficult. Even when she managed to sleep for a short while, she would suddenly wake again. Some nights she found herself awake at 3 in the morning, staring silently at the ceiling. While her thoughts tangled endlessly inside her mind, she visited many doctors. The doctors said her blood pressure was slightly high. Her stomach showed signs of mild inflammation. Her heart had no major issue, but she needed more rest. Everyone told her, "You should relax, try not to think too much, go to bed earlier." But dear friends, How does one simply stop thinking? How does one suddenly feel lighter? Some pain cannot be released just because we want to let it go. Mrs. Abigail had a son. She loved him deeply. She spent much of her youth sacrificing for him, working hard so he could study and have a better future. But when he grew older and got married, a distance quietly began to appear. She and her daughter-in-law did not understand each other well. Small things slowly became larger things. A careless sentence, an uncomfortable glance, a tense family meal. Little by little, Mrs. Abigail began feeling like a stranger inside her own family. One day, through tears, she quietly told a close friend, "I spent my whole life living for my family, and somehow I now feel like an outsider." Her friend simply sighed. Because everyone carries their own silent suffering. After that, Mrs. Abigail slowly changed. She became more irritable, more anxious, more withdrawn. Sadness followed her almost everywhere. Sometimes she would sit alone and quietly cry. But perhaps the most painful thing of all was this: she could not speak openly to anyone. She feared others would think she was difficult. She feared hurting her son. She feared creating more tension within the family. So she chose silence. But dear friends, there are sorrows that become lighter once spoken, and there are sorrows that quietly break us when carried alone for too long. Then one morning, Mrs. Abigail suddenly felt a sharp heaviness in her chest. Dizziness overwhelmed her. She felt too weak to stand. Her family rushed her to the hospital. Lying in that hospital room, under the cold white lights, for the first time in many years, she felt afraid, not afraid of death, but afraid that she had never truly lived for herself, afraid that she had spent her whole life caring for everyone else, while forgetting that her own heart also needed care. After that incident, a doctor said something she would remember for a very long time. "Your body is exhausted from prolonged stress." Just one sentence, but it felt as though someone had gently knocked on her heart. That night she could not sleep. She quietly asked herself, "How have I been living all these years? Am I tired because of age, or because my heart has never truly rested?" A week after leaving the hospital, a close friend invited her to listen to a Dharma talk at a temple. At first, she did not want to go. Her heart still felt heavy. Nothing interested her anymore. But staying home felt lonely too, so quietly. She went that afternoon. The weather was cool. A soft breeze moved gently through the temple courtyard. The sound of the temple bell echoed slowly in the distance, and somehow, the moment she stepped inside, her heart softened just a little. Then the monk said something very simple. "Some people are not sick because the body is weak, but because the heart has grown tired for too long." Mrs. Abigail suddenly froze, without understanding why. Her eyes began to sting with tears, and then the monk continued. "Many people spend their whole lives caring for others, while forgetting to care for themselves. When the heart carries too much, the body must eventually carry it too. Letting go is not losing. Sometimes letting go is saving yourself." Sitting quietly among the listeners, Mrs. Abigail felt something shift inside. For the first time in many years, she felt understood. After that afternoon, Mrs. Abigail slowly began to change. Not in some dramatic or sudden way, just little by little, very gently. She started waking up a bit earlier in the mornings, sitting quietly for a few moments before beginning the day, breathing more slowly, allowing herself to be still. She stopped reading things that only made her heart heavier. She complained less, expected less from others. And little by little, she stopped expecting everyone to live according to her wishes. Some afternoons, she would sit quietly on the porch, watching the trees sway softly in the wind, and suddenly she would cry. But this time, not because of loneliness, not because of hurt, but because she finally realized something painful. She had spent so many years making herself suffer. One day, her son came to visit. The two of them sat together and talked. Very softly, Mrs. Abigail said, "I think Ivy spent too many years overthinking. Perhaps Ivy also been too stubborn at times. Maybe I need to learn how to lighten my heart." Her son became quiet, then gently placed his arm around her shoulders and softly said, "Mom, please don't think so much anymore. I love you." Just one sentence, and suddenly, the tears she had held back for years finally came. Tears that felt like the release of an unbearable weight. After that, life did not magically become perfect. Her daughter-in-law still misunderstood her at times. Family tensions still occasionally appeared, but something important had changed. Mrs. Abigail no longer kept everything trapped inside. She learned how to see things more lightly. She learned to pause when the mind grew tired. She learned to take walks, to sit quietly, to softly recite the Buddha's name whenever her heart felt unsettled, and sometimes she would whisper to herself, "Let it pass. What is over deserves to rest." A year later, when old friends met her again, they were surprised. Her face looked brighter, she frowned less. She smiled more, even her health had changed. She slept more deeply. Her headaches came less often, her blood pressure became steadier. Someone asked her, "What medicine have you been taking?" Mrs. Abigail simply smiled and said, "I just learned how to stop hurting my own heart." Dear friends, do you see? Sometimes what truly needs healing is not only the body, but the heaviness inside the heart. Some people take every medicine available, yet still cannot heal, because they refuse to let go. And some people begin learning to forgive, learning to soften, learning to release, and somehow the body begins softening too. Not because of magic, but because the body and mind were never truly separate, if we look carefully. Mrs. Abigail's story may not feel unfamiliar at all, because somewhere in this world, there are many people quietly living exactly this way. Looking fine on the outside, but carrying storms within. And perhaps the saddest part is not illness itself, but unknowingly hurting ourselves for far too long. Many of us tell ourselves, just endure a little longer. Try a little harder. Think a little more and things will improve. But sometimes, what we truly need is not to try harder, but to pause, to soften, and to gently learn how to let go of what no longer needs to be carried. No one can truly feel healthy if the heart remains filled with suffering. No one sleeps peacefully if the mind never finds rest. And so, learning to care for yourself is not selfishness, it is wisdom. Letting go a little makes life lighter. Forgiving a little brings more peace, and as the mind slowly becomes calmer, the body also begins to heal. If these reflections speak to your heart, we warmly invite you to subscribe to Buddha's Healing, where together we nurture peace within, one gentle day at a time. And if there is something difficult you have been carrying in your heart, perhaps you may gently share it in the comments. Sometimes, opening the heart becomes the very first step toward healing. Dear friends, there is something many of us quietly overlook in life: the power of small things repeated every single day. A drop of water falling upon stone. One day, nothing changes. 1 month, still nothing seems different. Even 1 year, the stone may appear untouched, but after many years, even stone begins to wear away. Human life is very much the same. Our health is not always taken by one great tragedy. Often, it is slowly worn away by very small things, ordinary things. Familiar things, things so common we no longer notice them. A little worry, a little anger, a sadness left unspoken, a bit of pressure, a little resentment, a little stubborn attachment. At first, these things sound completely normal. After all, who has never felt sadness? Who has never been angry? Who has never felt pressure? Yes, that is true. The problem is not whether suffering appears. The real question is, how long do we hold on to it? Some people grieve for a day, and then gently let it pass. Some hold on to it for years. And some carry it for an entire lifetime. Some people are wounded, yet slowly learn how to heal. Others continue touching the same old wound, again and again, remembering it every day, hurting from it every day. And without realizing, turning memory into a thorn buried deep inside the heart. The strange thing about being human is this. Sometimes the painful event itself has already passed, but the mind continues hurting itself long after. A sentence spoken 10 years ago still lingers. A betrayal from long ago still aches. A moment of being looked down upon still burns quietly inside. Something that should have been left behind is still being carried, and slowly. The body begins to speak, sleep becomes lighter, the heart feels uneasy, the head aches more often. The shoulders grow tense, energy fades, joy becomes harder to feel, patience becomes thinner. Many people quietly say, perhaps this is just old age, but dear friends, sometimes it is not age, sometimes the heart has simply grown too tired. Have you ever noticed? Some people are only in their 40s, yet their faces already look deeply exhausted. And yet others well into their 70s still have bright eyes, a gentle smile, a peaceful presence. What creates such a difference? Not only food, not only medicine, but the condition of the heart. A person who knows contentment often suffers less. A person who clings less sleeps more deeply. A person who forgives walks through life more lightly. A person who carries less resentment often carries less heaviness in the body as well. And so today, we begin with the first quiet habit that slowly drains the health of many people. A habit that seems harmless, yet quietly exhausts both mind and body. That habit is overthinking. The Buddha gently reminded us that an unsettled mind leads to suffering. A person constantly living inside fear, inside imagination, inside worries about things that have not yet happened, will struggle to know true peace. There is something deeply important to remember. Most of the things we worry about never actually happen, and yet, the worrying itself is already stealing our peace in the present moment. A person who lives in constant worry is like someone endlessly running inside the mind. The body may be sitting still, but the mind never rests, and when the mind never rests, the body struggles to recover. The Buddha taught, the past has already gone. The future has not yet arrived. The only thing truly here is this present moment. But sadly, many people live without truly being present. They eat, yet worry. They lie down, yet keep thinking. They sit beside loved ones, yet their hearts remain restless. And slowly, joy becomes smaller, exhaustion becomes greater. If you look carefully, overthinking is one of the quietest ways we hurt ourselves. Some people open their eyes in the morning and immediately begin worrying. Worrying about money, worrying about children, worrying about growing old, worrying about illness, worrying about what others think, worrying they are not enough, worrying they are misunderstood. And when night finally comes, the worrying still does not stop. The body longs to sleep, but the mind refuses. Thought after thought, turning over endlessly. A small problem becomes enormous. A single sentence is replayed for days. Something that has not even happened yet, turns into countless imagined fears. Dear friends, the human mind can sometimes create far more suffering than reality itself. Sometimes, the painful thing has not even happened. Yet we have already exhausted ourselves preparing for it. Some people fear illness so deeply that fear itself begins making them sick. Some fear loss so much that they forget how to enjoy what they already have. Some think so much that tension becomes their normal state. Imagine a phone being used without rest. Eventually, it overheats, it slows down. Human beings are no different. When the mind never pauses, when the heart never relaxes, the body begins responding. Sleeplessness, exhaustion, headaches, digestive problems, irritability, difficulty focusing, sadness, burnout. And perhaps what is most heartbreaking is this: many people become so used to feeling this way that they begin believing this is simply life. Everyone is tired. But dear friends, exhaustion is not meant to be the natural state of the human spirit. Sometimes, fatigue is simply the heart whispering, "I am overwhelmed." If you have been carrying the habit of overthinking, please do not blame yourself. Simply begin gently, little by little. Think a little less about what has not yet arrived. Carry a little less of the whole world on your shoulders. Release the need to control everything, because some things, the tighter we hold, the heavier they become. The more we worry, the less peace we find. But strangely, the gentler we become with life, the calmer the heart grows. Tonight, before sleeping, perhaps try something simple. Place your hands softly over your heart. Take one deep breath in. Exhale slowly, and gently tell yourself, "Today is enough. What has not yet arrived does not deserve my fear. I have already done my best." Sometimes, just becoming a little softer with yourself is where healing quietly begins. Dear friends, as we continue today's reflection, perhaps the most important thing is not simply understanding suffering, but learning how to care for ourselves more gently. Because healing does not happen all at once. It happens quietly, little by little. Like sunlight slowly warming the earth after a long winter, like a flower opening petal by petal. And often, the first step toward healing is simply this: becoming aware that perhaps we have been too harsh on ourselves, too demanding, too tired, too burdened, too afraid to rest. Many people spend their whole lives being kind to others, yet are deeply unkind to themselves. They forgive everyone else, but never forgive themselves. They comfort others, but silently abandon their own hearts. They keep saying, "Just hold on a little longer, don't be weak." Keep going, but dear friends, even the strongest tree still bends when storms arrive. Even the sky allows rain to fall. Even the earth rests between seasons. Why should the human heart be expected to carry everything without rest? The Buddha never taught us to fight ourselves. He taught compassion, and perhaps one of the greatest forms of compassion is learning how to be gentle with your own suffering, not denying it, not pretending to be strong all the time, but quietly acknowledging, "Yes, I have been tired. Yes, this heart has been carrying too much. Yes, perhaps I deserve some gentleness too." Sometimes, the healing we seek does not begin with changing the whole world around us. It begins with changing the way we hold ourselves, the way we breathe, the way we speak to ourselves, the way we stop reopening old pain. You know, there are people who carry guilt for many years, guilt for mistakes, guilt for things they wish they had done differently, guilt for words they should not have spoken. And little by little, that guilt quietly becomes suffering. But dear friends, we are all human, and to be human is to make mistakes. The Buddha never asked us to be perfect. He only invited us to awaken, to learn, to grow wiser, to suffer less. The past cannot be changed, but how we walk forward, that can change. There are wounds that time alone cannot heal. But awareness can, compassion can, understanding can, and sometimes, simply allowing yourself to breathe and say, "I no longer wish to suffer this way," can become the beginning of transformation. If today there is something heavy still resting in your heart, please do not rush yourself. Do not force yourself to let go overnight. Some pain takes time, some grief needs tenderness, some wounds need silence. Healing is not a race. And peace does not arrive through force. It arrives gently, like a quiet visitor, often when we finally stop chasing. And simply allow ourselves to rest. Perhaps tonight, you may sit quietly for a few moments. No phone. No noise, no rushing, just you and your breath. Sit quietly, breathe slowly, and gently ask yourself, what have I been carrying for too long? What am I afraid to release? What part of me still needs kindness? And maybe you do not need to answer immediately. Maybe simply asking the question is already enough for today. Because awareness itself is already healing. Dear friends, many people believe peace comes when life becomes perfect. But life rarely becomes perfect. There will still be problems, still misunderstandings, still loss, still sadness, still moments when the heart feels tired. But true peace is not the absence of difficulty. True peace is learning how to remain gentle, even while life continues changing. A calm heart does not mean a problem-free life. It simply means the storm no longer controls you the way it once did, and perhaps this is one of the deepest lessons the Buddha offered us. We suffer not only because life is difficult. We suffer because we hold too tightly to what cannot stay. And when we slowly begin loosening our grip, something beautiful happens. The heart softens, the breath deepens, sleep returns, and somehow, life feels lighter again. Dear friends, as we come closer to the end of today's reflection, perhaps the most important thing we can gently remember is this. Health is not only about the body. Health is also about how gently we live with ourselves, because sometimes what makes us suffer most is not life itself, but the way we hold life, holding too tightly, expecting too much, thinking too much, fearing too much, trying too hard to control things that were never ours to control. Many people quietly exhaust themselves, trying to carry everything alone, trying to be strong for everyone, trying to solve every problem, trying not to disappoint anyone, trying not to fail, trying not to break. But dear friends, even the strongest heart grows tired. Even the kindest soul sometimes feels overwhelmed. And there is no shame in that. You do not have to carry every burden alone. You do not have to be strong every moment. Sometimes, strength is allowing yourself to pause, allowing yourself to cry, allowing yourself to admit, I am tired, I need rest, I need peace. The Buddha taught us the middle way, not too tight, not too loose. Not pushing ourselves until we break, and not abandoning ourselves either, but learning balance, learning gentleness, learning wisdom. Perhaps that is what true healing really is, not becoming someone entirely new, but slowly returning to yourself. The self beneath all the worry, beneath the pressure, beneath the endless noise of the mind. The self that simply longs to breathe peacefully again. You know, many people spend years chasing happiness, thinking, when this problem is solved, I will finally be at peace. When I have enough money, I will relax. When people finally understand me, I will stop hurting. But strangely, even after reaching those things, the heart sometimes still feels restless. Why? Because peace was never something outside of us. Peace begins within. And often, Peace begins the moment we stop fighting ourselves, the moment we stop asking life to be perfect, the moment we stop demanding that everyone understand us, the moment we quietly whisper, "This moment is enough. I do not need to carry everything today. I can rest now." There is something deeply beautiful about slowing down. Eating a meal slowly, walking slowly, breathing deeply, watching the sky, listening to the wind. Sitting quietly without needing to fix everything. Sometimes, these small moments become medicine for the soul. A medicine no pharmacy can sell. A medicine the heart quietly remembers. And dear friends, please remember this. Not every wound needs to disappear immediately. Not every burden leaves overnight. Healing often happens quietly. So quietly that at first you barely notice it. One day, you breathe a little easier. Another day, you sleep a little deeper. Another day, you smile without forcing it. Another day, something that once hurt deeply no longer hurts quite the same. And suddenly, you realize, perhaps I am healing. Not perfectly, not completely, but gently, little by little, and perhaps that is enough. If today your heart still feels heavy, please do not lose hope. A tired heart is not a broken heart. A weary soul is not a hopeless soul. Sometimes it is simply a soul asking to be cared for, to be heard, to be held gently. So tonight, before sleep comes, may you offer yourself a little kindness, a little patience, a little forgiveness. Place your hands softly over your heart. Take one deep breath and quietly say, "Thank you for carrying me this far. I know you are tired, but we will heal gently because, dear friends, sometimes the deepest healing begins the moment we stop fighting ourselves and begin treating ourselves with compassion instead." Dear friends, as we arrive at the end of today's gentle reflection, perhaps the most meaningful thing we can bring home with us is not simply knowledge about illness, but understanding about how we have been living with ourselves. There is a truth in life that feels both gentle and profound. No one wishes to suffer. No one wishes to become ill. No one wishes to wake up carrying a heavy body. No one wishes to spend long nights unable to sleep. No one wishes for old age to arrive carrying loneliness and exhaustion. And yet, sometimes, without realizing it, we quietly live in ways that slowly wound both body and heart. Not through anything dramatic, but through very small things, a worry that never stops, an anger that never softens, a disappointment held for too long, a painful memory revisited again and again, pressure we quietly place upon ourselves, a habit of endless overthinking, little by little, silently, without noise, until one day, the body finally begins to speak. For some, it becomes headaches that never fully leave. For others, sleepless nights, a restless heart, irritability, constant fatigue, or a heaviness no medical test can fully explain. And perhaps, if we listen carefully, the body has not been trying to punish us. Perhaps it has only been whispering, "You have been carrying too much. You have been tired for too long. Please rest." Life has never been easy. Every person carries invisible struggles. Some suffer because of money, some because of family, some because of love, some because of illness, some because of loneliness, and some because of silent pain they have never spoken aloud. So if today you still feel tired, please do not blame yourself. Just pause for a moment, breathe, and gently ask, what have I been holding for too long? What pain am I still carrying? How long has it been since my heart truly rested? Because often, what exhausts us most is not life itself, but the way we cling to life, wanting everything to be perfect, wanting everyone to understand us, wanting never to be hurt, wanting life to unfold exactly as we wish. But dear friends, life is impermanent, everything changes, people change, circumstances change, health changes. Joy changes, even sorrow changes. There will be meetings and there will be partings, there will be strength. And there will be weakness, there will be happiness, and there will also be difficult seasons, and perhaps. The moment we deeply understand impermanence, the heart slowly becomes lighter. We stop demanding life to stay the same. We stop clinging so tightly. We stop hurting ourselves endlessly over what has already passed. And slowly, the body breathes easier, sleep deepens, smiles return, life softens. Do you know something beautiful? Dear friends, sometimes people do not begin healing because of medicine first. Sometimes healing begins the moment they learn to let go, to forgive, to slow down, to be kinder to themselves, to sit quietly for a few minutes each day, to stop blaming, to stop overthinking, to place a hand over the heart and softly whisper, "It's okay. I've been trying my best. This too shall pass." Sometimes healing does not begin in a hospital. Sometimes healing begins in a moment of awakening. A quiet moment when you suddenly realize, I have been making my own heart suffer for far too long. And from that moment on, something gently changes. You eat more slowly, you speak more softly, you breathe more deeply. You become less angry, less reactive, less attached, less competitive, more grateful, more content, more peaceful. Some people think peace means life becomes problem-free, but that is not true. Peace means that even when life still brings challenges, the heart is no longer constantly drowning in storms. Some people think being healthy means never getting sick, but perhaps true health sometimes means this. Even if the body is still healing, the mind has finally begun to rest, and a peaceful mind is one of the deepest forms of healing. So after listening today, please do not pressure yourself to change everything overnight. Do not rush. Do not force yourself. Simply begin gently. Tonight, sleep a little earlier. Spend a little less time holding your phone. Worry a little less about tomorrow. Forgive someone a little more. Forgive yourself a little more. Sit quietly for a few minutes. Take a deep breath. Recite the Buddha's name softly if your heart feels unsettled. Allow the mind to rest. Little by little, the heart grows lighter, and when the heart grows lighter, the body slowly softens too. Then one day, you may come to understand something truly beautiful. Health does not only come from what we eat. It also comes from what we continue carrying in the heart. Carry too much, and life feels heavy. Release a little, and life becomes lighter. Perhaps the greatest blessing of growing older is not simply living longer, but learning how to live the remaining years in peace, sleeping more deeply, eating with joy, smiling more often, holding less anger, clinging less tightly, living more gently, and loving yourself a little better. Dear friends, may you be softer with yourself after today. May you suffer less. May you slow down in this hurried world. And may you learn little by little how to rest inwardly again. If today's reflection touched your heart, we warmly invite you to subscribe to Buddha's Healing, where together we nurture peace, compassion, and healing, one gentle day at a time. And if there is something your heart is still learning to release, perhaps you may softly share it below. Sometimes, opening the heart becomes the very first step toward healing. May you always be blessed with peace in the body, peace in the heart, and enough calmness to walk through life's changing seasons with grace and gentleness. May you be well. May you be peaceful. May you be free from suffering.